Stop saying it was luck. Today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom. Your 9-0 Chiefs gave you plenty to talk about. We're going to get to it. We're brought to you today by Ultimate GM. That is the game. Use the code promo code Locked On NFL. It's all caps inside the game, and you can receive a free boost or franchise in that game. Ultimate GM. You've seen it before. You know you want to play it. We have a lot to go over because the explosion of information, quote unquote, is going down the wrong path, and we're going to set it straight today. This is Chris Clark from Chiefs Corner. I'm Ryan Tracy from NFL 33 and RGR Football. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you like, sub, hit the bell here as we're available on all the platforms all the time for free. We thank you for making us your first listen. Check out another Locked On show for your next one. Go to the other sites, get out and get on the text line at 816-357-8781. We are going to tell you who stood out to us on Deeper Review against Denver and what that means for the future. Before that, we are going to get to who may be coming back to join this team sooner and definitely later as we go down the stretch. And we start today by the thing that is bothering the most. It's under my skin and it's pissing me off, and we're going to get down to the bottom of it because I don't care if it's me or Orlovsky or McAfee, whoever it is. The national headline that the Chiefs are winning by being lucky is absolute BS.
Go ahead. I just was going to say, if you want to be happy, go look for the Denver. There's a whole bunch of Denver streamers out there, and somebody made a clip of all the Denver streamers losing it as they watched them get the field goal blocked. It was glorious. It was 15 minutes.
Seriously?
It was absolutely glorious. It was great to watch. I laughed for so long. It's not luck, though. And I kind of talked about this yesterday a little bit, but we didn't have time to really get into it. The reality is this team is extremely prepared in any situation that they're going to face. They are extremely well coached. You can argue all you want that special teams has struggled at times, offense has struggled at times, defense has struggled at times, all of it. But they know the game of football. These coaches have them prepared for every little thing. And I think I said this yesterday, but I do want to say this. Props to Nick Bolton and Jaden Hicks and Joshua Williams, who went and dove on the ball after the field goal block. That is something that can easily be overlooked, but it's still a big deal because if they don't go cover it, it's a live ball at that point. And it's the small things that become a deal. And before we get into talking about luck, I want to say this about Harrison Butker. He came out and said right after the game, it was his fault they got the ball on the 40. That kick was supposed to go through the end zone. That is something that he mishit, and that's on him. And the other thing that shows me is that this team is accountable in every single situation. They're going to take responsibility for what they're supposed to do, even though Andy Reid will always try to take responsibility for everything.
Yeah, I mean, he will be your blanket on the forest fire. I completely agree. And he spoke today, and he spoke about the fact that it took all three phases. And yes, this was a narrow victory. And yes, they have a ton of stuff to clean up. We're going to talk about some of that in the next couple of minutes here. But it takes that whole team, and it doesn't matter if they're winning ugly. I thought that both Orlovsky spent a lot of time on ESPN, so did Pat McAfee. And if you watch some of those, if you haven't had a chance, they're on Twitter. Go check them out. They're on YouTube. It comes down to this. You cannot produce that play without doing your homework. You cannot produce that play without executing the way that you've practiced. And to practice it, you have to practice it over and over and over and over. It takes a player, and this is not a slight on anybody else, it takes a player like Justin Reid to distract part of the blocking scheme. So a power player like Leo Chenal can actually get under the pads of a guy that you know has a weakness in order to blast through and get three guys to get a chance to get their hands on the ball. Yes, Leo made an incredible play of not only taking that guy out, but getting back up for it. But if he had missed it, George was right behind him. Jack Cochran was not far off of it. This is three guys, not just one that made an excellent play, one to distract, three to do that, and the rest of the guys to actually distract the rest of the team to actually execute that play. It is not luck by any stretch of the imagination.
No, it's not. And Leo Chenal actually came out and talked about it, I believe, yesterday after the game. And what he talked about, and this is how much detail they go into, Tobe watches these situations, watches them get off the ball, and Tobe is sitting there telling them, Justin Reed's getting the ball off in 2 frames, which means 2 camera frames. Justin Reed is already off the ball going after the field goal. That's one of the reasons why he was able to get one against Denver last year. And Denver had to specifically plan for Justin Reed because of that in this game. But so Chenal is sitting there going, damn, he's getting off in 2. He's struggling to get off in 6. Think about how much of a difference that is. Obviously Reed's coming from a lot further out. He's not going to be bowling through people, but that's how detailed and how minute they get in down to the details and try to figure out what it is that they're going to do. And then you go back, and Brian Baldinger actually had another segment, I believe, on this one specifically, talked about go watch the first field goal that the first extra point Denver attempted. Chenal doesn't actually rush on that one. He actually doesn't do anything on that specific play. The second extra point, he rushes and bowls the guy over. The field goal that they missed, the 60-yarder, he rushes and bowls the guy over. They knew exactly what they were going to be doing, and then they executed when it mattered the most. And say what you want about the team, and it's absolutely not luck. It is preparation 100 times over 100 times. And you have guys that are going to miss making plays like Mahomes did yesterday, and somebody else on the team is going to step up behind him and say, no, not today. I've got your back.
Yep. And that's what it takes. It is full accountability through the whole roster, not through 53, not through the active 45, through 69 and all the staff and everybody in the building. It all comes down to that preparation. So let's put that one to rest. What we don't need to put to rest is who's coming back, because we are about close to getting some players back. We don't have the exact timeline, but there's a couple of options, and you guys are going to dig them right after this. Hey, Chiefs fans, remember our great partner, Ultimate Pro Football GM? Well, they're back, and they've added an amazing new game mode, and I'm going to tell you about it. The game lets you step into the shoes of a franchise GM and lead it to glory. Now you can even get into a head coach career mode. So on top of building your dynasty and drafting players, signing free agents, hiring and coaching staff, now you can call the offensive plays during games as well. Ultimate Pro Football GM is completely free, has no ads. It's 100% playable online, play on the go. And here's a special offer for Locked On fans. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost on your franchise. To make sure you get it, as this is the perk that will jumpstart your play and give you the advantage that you want in creating a dynasty. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up in the game stores. It's Ultimate Pro Football GM. Start your dynasty today. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers, you can bet just $5 and you get 150 back in bonus bets if you win right now. FanDuel Sportsbook, the app, gives you everything that you need to get bets in place for the NFL all in one place. So when you got a hunch in the middle of the game, you want to check out the latest stats, you live by that play-by-play, you can do that and much more on the same page right where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com today and join. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 and official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
You talk about all these guys that were getting ready to come back and get back. One of the favorite stories I heard from yesterday, Mecole Hardman was talking to D-Hop on the sideline, and D-Hop was like, we lost this game. And Mecole Hardman says, it's not over yet. And look what happened next. He said he said he's seen plenty happen with this Chiefs team. That's something that D-Hop is learning as he's coming in. This team does things differently, but we do have some guys that could be coming back. They could be adding a lot more to this team.
Yeah, just like Mecole said, I've seen crazier things, right? I've seen crazier things than JuJu get back on the field. Andy Reid talked to the press today and did talk about JuJu, Charles Omenihu, and Isaiah Pacheco. And he did say that JuJu is probably the closest of the three of them. That makes perfect sense to me. What's exciting about that is that guys that need to step up are at the wide receiver position. I thought Mecole did a couple of nice things, but he's not obviously having the impact to make up for a JuJu, especially, that couple of games before JuJu went out, a big explosive game. So JuJu paired with DeAndre, paired with Kels. Now you're talking about having 3 weapons on the field, and you're back to not relying on a rookie to do things that maybe he's not prepared for. A lot of people are down on X-Worthy this week. I'm not there. He does need to progress, but he will get there. Having more veteran leadership on the field and in the practice room will help him. So I'm really excited about what that's going to do. Does he stand out to you, or what about the other guys?
Worthy or JuJu? Sorry. JuJu, I think, is a huge addition to this team. I think when he comes back, that's going to be huge, and I cannot wait for it to happen, because you're absolutely right. It gives them a third weapon on the field at the same time as having D-Hop and Kelsey, and to a certain extent, Noah Gray. But the thing I'm going to like when JuJu comes back is it gives Worthy the ability to just be the guy that he was planned to be this year. Because the reality is he wasn't planned on being the number 1 guy or even a number 2 guy this year. He was looked at best probably being number 3, and maybe even you could probably even argue number 4 because of Kelsey. Yeah. So at that point, I mean, it's a completely different situation, and he's going to be coming back in, and he's still going to be in a situation where he's able to take the top off the defense. He's taking safeties deep. He's pulling coverage back, and look at who they have that's going to be underneath catching the ball now. Kelsey's been fantastic about it the past couple of weeks, and he's actually now on pace for 1,000 yards this season, which is crazy to think after how it started. But I have been tracking that he's on pace for 1,000 yards this season if he keeps it up. And then you have DeAndre Hopkins, who I said wasn't going to get the yak, and you saw what happened yesterday. So he's being a little bit different than he has been also. And then you get JuJu, who's another guy who is used to getting a ton of yak and catching the ball underneath. Bringing all those defenders back because they have to worry about Worthy is a huge deal to this offense and could really open things up.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's the total of the passing offense is more than just a sum of its parts. It grows exponentially when you have that many factors on the field, especially when you can balance 2 of them versus the 1, right? You get many more combinations. They have to get back to playing, I think, not just to the expectation that they have, but being able to run man beaters, zone beaters, and a little bit of crazy every single game. They're great at having the crazy. They got all kinds of tricks up their sleeves, but they got to be, I think, a little bit more prepared going forward to attack both styles of defense, because the Broncos really switched it up on them. And I think having these 3 guys allows you to do that a little bit better. Now, so with Charles Omenihu, he and Isaiah Pacheco are the other 2 guys that Andy mentioned today as being close. We could even see them on the practice field in some capacity this week.
That's huge.
That is huge. Excuse me. And I will say, I think it's a little early for Omenihu, even if he's ready, because you have to give him credit. He came back late in the season last year. He did get hurt again. I don't want to stress that. I don't think you need Charles Omenihu until December, maybe mid-December. If he's good before that, I would still give him time to ramp up, get his legs underneath him, get his conditioning in before you try to put him back on the field.
The nice thing is that even if all 3 of them come back this week to practice, none of them have to. Well, sorry, JuJu, I guess, would be coming back because he's actually already on the active roster. So I guess that's the separate situation. But They do have an active roster spot still open, and I don't think that they're going to be filling that until they either get Pacheco back or Omenihu back. But the nice thing with both those guys is they have a 3-week window. So they start practice, they have 3 weeks to figure out when they're going to activate them. And they're going to bring them back at some point. So it's just a matter of, okay, do we wait? Do we start practicing this week, ramp them up next week, bring them back maybe against the Raiders? To me, you look at the schedule, and I don't want to get past the Bills too much, right, but this is kind of important to think about. When you look at who they're playing, Pacheco really would be great for this game, but if they're not going to have him for this game, do you really want to bring him back just for the Panthers? And then not only the Panthers, but then the next week you come back and you play the Raiders on a short week. Do you want to have him back on a short week? Like, that's kind of the thing that I'm looking at with both of these guys, is if they do bring them to back to practice, maybe they don't activate him until after the Raiders game, because you're not going to need him for the Panthers game. If you want to bring him back for Raiders, I guess you can, but it's going to be a short week, and that just seems like it may be a bad situation to bring both those guys back in at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. And we're going to monitor all week, folks, as we get a little bit more from Andy and who's on the practice field. And starting tomorrow, as well as running down the last remnants of this game, we'll start looking at the Bills. Matt Derrick will be with me. Then we have the crossover. We're going to get down to the nitty gritty against the Bills, and then we will give you our preview on Friday. So do not miss that. Now, hopefully these guys get back on the field. They give you a little bit extra. That will help somebody stand out. There are guys who stood out here that need more call out. We're going to get to them coming up next. The atmosphere at Arrowhead is unique. There's nothing like it. Nowhere more in the world that you want to watch a ball game than right there from those seats. Finding those seats is always interesting. It makes it super easy to use Game Time. It's all in pricing, so you never get hit with anything strange. You don't get surprised at checkout. You get to see the view from every seat in the stadium, so you know exactly what that ball game is going to look like when you're sitting there. And they offer the lowest price guarantee. You find it cheaper somewhere else, they'll give you 110% of the difference right there on the spot. All you got to do is get the Game Time app. So go download it, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL. You'll get $20 off of your first purchase. Again, all you got to do is create an account and use the code. It's LOCKEDONNFL, and you get $20 off. Go down that Game Time app today. What time is it? Game time. Now, don't act surprised. We're going to start with the guys who stood out and need a little more attention on the defensive side of the ball for me. I know that's crazy.
Well, considering how the offense played.
On what is a strange week for me this week, a lot of things going on that have given me a little bit of time where I can't actually set everything. So I'm listening to more. I'm listening to more national media than I have in recent weeks. And one of the things that's really bothering me is the other storyline that somehow Trent McDuffie is toast and he can't play anymore. And it's all over. Really, really infuriating. Did he have a tougher game than he usually does? Yes. There is a physicality factor with Cortland Sutton that I think is just one of those matchups. Mike Williams might be another. We've seen that in the past that just doesn't work, right?
There was a push.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you got those, well, I'm not even going there. When you don't have Jalen Watson to take that physicality factor and take that matchup, it puts Trent in a little bit tougher position. But let me run down this for you. Drew Tranquil, 100%. Justin Reed, 100%. Brian Cook, 100%. Jaden Hicks, 100%. Shamari Connor, 100%. Nick Bolton, 100%. Leo and Uche, all 100%. The only two guys that actually were in there for an incompletion, Najee Johnson stopped one pass. Trent McDuffie got targeted 8 times, only gave up 3 catches. Yes, one of them was very big. But the only guy that was actively creating incompletions in the Chiefs secondary yesterday was Trent McDuffie.
Yeah. He's still a fantastic player, and that's a horrible matchup for him. I mean, Mike Williams, in the Chargers, I mean, that was always a horrible matchup for him. He's always going to be outmatched by somebody that is, 6 inches taller than him, probably, and has 20 or 30 pounds on him. And, I mean, Trent doesn't have the longest arms anyway, so that's not going to help. And then you add in a push-off on that touchdown. I'm sorry, it was a push-off. I know it's not going to get called. I know that's fine. I'm not going to complain about it, but that's what it was. I mean, you see it clear as day. So you have to try to adjust and deal with that thing, deal with those types of things differently. But at the same time, he's still the best corner they have on this team, and probably the best corner they've had in 10 years. And I say that pretty easily. I don't think it's close. I think he's the best corner they've easily had in 10 years, and probably a lot longer than that. But he's going to get beat at times. He's going to have off games at times. It happens. But this goes back to what we said, goes back to almost exactly what I said in the first segment. It doesn't matter if you have an off game, because somebody is going to step up behind you and say, no, not today. I've got your back. And while you're right, McDuffie still broke up a whole bunch of passes and still played pretty well overall. You know, you look at this team and you look at what else the defense did. They still kept him to almost no rushing. 50 yards rushing by their leading back is no rushing. Not in the NFL. It's just you're going to win a lot of football games, especially in the playoffs, if you're keeping any team to close to 50 to 75 yards rushing. And yes, Baltimore's a little bit different with Lamar Jackson because he rushes a lot as well. And that's a whole different scenario, but you're going to have to figure out how to deal with it. So,
yeah, no way around it. The other guy on the offensive side that stood out to me, and maybe I'm stretching here just because I like the concept. I thought when Jody Fortson went down, when Wiley went down, they were in trouble with being able to try to perform some of the offense that they want to perform in the 13 personnel set in particular. I think he's 2 for 2 on the year at this point. I think Peyton Hendershot should become more a part of this offense. I like the way he moves. He seems to understand the motion game. He seems to understand some of the small details that go in this offense, and I'm ready to see a bigger part. I like his body type. I think he's active around the ball, and I think he can help this offense.
I'm okay with that in the passing game. When he's trying to catch the ball and when he's trying to run routes, I don't know if I agree with that when it comes to pass blocking. And the whole reason I say that is because, and maybe it's not just him, the left tackle situation obviously was rough, and I get that, but he has to be better, and they have to get on the same page. You know, if it's not his fault, that's fine. If you want to say it's the left tackle, I have no problem with that. But the reality is that the tight end is there to try to help out the left tackle, and it was definitely not helping the left tackle out, and they have to get that taken care of going forward. They have to figure out how to set up whoever's playing left tackle to be better. Wanye has been struggling the past couple of weeks. Yeah, he was better than Kingsley, and I will give you that, but he's still been struggling to an extent. And you have to figure out a way, if you're going to be a tight end on that side of the line and you're trying to help the tackle, you have to be on the same page. You have to actually help him, because he left him high and dry. He left Kingsley high and dry multiple times. And yes, that's partially on Kingsley, or mostly on Kingsley probably. But
I mean,
you have to get that figured out.
Much, so
right, but you have to have some communication. You have to have some, talk and say, okay, this is what I'm doing, and so he has an idea of where he thinks the guy's going to end up, because it was clear as day. The second he chucked somebody, Kingsley wasn't getting back and Mahomes was getting hit, and you can't have that on a regular basis.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm thinking more in terms of the pass catching,
and I agree with you in that. No,
I'll even stretch it to this. What I want to see is trip sets with Kels and Hendershot out front and Xavier behind them. If you're going to run screens to X, I want to see it with some big dudes out front of him. Don't let a 180-pound DB come blow up a screen because it happens to be Xavier Worthy. Get him some big blockers out there. And I think Hendershot is good on the move enough to create some lanes for Xavier and Hardman in particular to accelerate in the screen game. That's what I'm looking for.
Fair enough. What, you don't want to be like Detroit and go put an offensive lineman out there to block for a screen?
I mean, I'm all for fat guy touchdowns. Let's get real.
Come on, dude.
I resemble that remark, but let's not go super crazy. So.
Yeah. Well, you watch how this team has progressed, and you watch how they continue to play, and it doesn't really matter. And this is what it started with. They're not lucky. They're well coached, and they are hammered home every single time. And this goes back to the Super Bowl for a second. Go back to talking about the overtime rules in the Super Bowl. Kansas City knew, their entire team that had been on the team since the start of the year knew what the rules were going to be for the playoffs. They were talking about that in August.
Yeah.
Like, I understand I'm really diving deep on this, but it is so huge and so key, and it never gets talked about how important the details are and how important it is for players to know such and such, and this, you do this in this situation, and when we're doing this, we're trying to do this. Or church mode in the Super Bowl with Jerick McKinnon when he goes down on a knee instead of scoring a touchdown. I mean, all that is played out way before they actually played in the game. And it's just the minor details and the small things that add up. And that's why Kansas City continues to win, even when they're not playing great and even when they're almost trying to beat themselves.
That's true. And that will continue until somebody figures out how to beat them at the details. What stood out to you? What did we miss? What are the little things that you want to hear more about? Put your comments down below here on YouTube. Thank you for being with us. We have a great week planned for you. Hope that you will join us multiple times, because we have Matt, we have guests from the Bills, and we have the preview coming. Do not miss a second of it. Thanks for being with us today. We'll talk to you tomorrow.